Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today we're going to unpack one of the most bizarre and unsettling medical mysteries of the 20th century, a case that truly blurs the lines between a medical emergency and a scene from a speculative thriller. The perplexing death of Gloria Ramirez, famously known as the Toxic Lady. This isn't your typical crime story. It's a medical enigma, really. A night in the emergency room that began like any other, only to spiral into something profoundly baffling. We're talking about a woman's passing that appeared to have a bewildering, almost inexplicable effect on those who desperately tried to save her.
It's absolutely fascinating. What's truly compelling about the Gloria Ramirez case is that it transcends just a simple, tragic event. It really stands as a profound scientific puzzle and, a deeply personal human tragedy, too. Plus, there's this very public debate that continues to challenge our understanding of what precisely transpired. As we explore this, we'll get into the enduring questions surrounding the strange and, frankly, frightening symptoms experienced by the medical staff who treated her, and how a single incident can ignite such a persistent and, contentious discussion for decades.
Okay, so let's begin to untangle these threads. Before we walk through the chilling events of that night, maybe we should start with who Gloria Ramirez was. It's essential context, isn't it?
Definitely. She was a 31-year-old mother of two living in Riverside, California. By early 1994, she was engaged in an incredibly difficult, courageous battle against advanced cervical cancer.
Right, so she was already very, very ill.
Extremely ill. Her condition had deteriorated significantly. And it was the severe complications of this illness, specifically overwhelming cardiac and kidney issues, that ultimately led to her being rushed to the hospital.
You can only begin to imagine the immense fear and anxiety she and her family must have been experiencing in those final days, facing the dire reality of her illness.
Precisely. So on February 19th, 1994, Gloria Ramirez arrived at Riverside General Hospital in an extremely critical state. Her symptoms were alarmingly severe.
Like what specifically?
Well, a dangerously rapid heart rate, a high fever, which indicated infection or, systemic distress, and profound difficulty breathing. That pointed to respiratory or cardiac failure. These were all stark indicators of the advanced terminal stage of her cancer and the immediate medical emergency she was facing.
So the medical team, they were expecting a tough case, but a standard resuscitation effort?
Exactly. They were prepared for a standard, albeit urgent, resuscitation effort. They were professionals, highly trained for high-pressure situations, yet they were certainly not prepared for the unprecedented and, frankly, bizarre chain of events that would unfold moments after her arrival.
Right. This is where the story takes its truly bewildering turn. Those initial observations become critical. From the moment Gloria Ramirez was wheeled into the bustling emergency room, attending medical staff began noticing some extraordinarily strange phenomena. Is that right?
That's what the reports say. Several nurses and doctors distinctly recalled an unusual oily sheen on her skin. It seemed to cover her body like a thin film.
An oily sheen? That sounds very odd. Not typical for her condition.
Highly unusual, no. And even more bizarre and certainly more unsettling was a distinct, pungent odor emanating from her mouth. It was described differently by various staff members. Some said fruity, some garlic-like, others even vaguely metallic.
Wow. Fruity, garlicky, metallic. You can appreciate the immediate alarm those unexpected sensory cues would trigger in a clinical setting. These weren't just odd symptoms. They were like profoundly anomalous findings that foreshadowed something far beyond a routine medical emergency.
You've highlighted the crucial initial signs, and the situation escalated dramatically, terrifyingly quickly as staff began their immediate treatment. The sequence of events that followed is truly chilling, and it's well documented through witness statements.
Okay, walk us through it. What happened first?
A nurse, Susan Kane, was preparing to draw blood from Ramirez as part of the initial assessment, standard procedure. As the needle punctured the vein, Kane immediately recoiled. She noted an incredibly strong ammonia-like odor coming from the blood sample itself.
From the blood, not just her breath.
From the blood in the vial, yes. And almost instantaneously, Nurse Kane felt dizzy, disoriented, and then without warning, she fainted right there on the spot. Dropped the syringe. It was incredibly sudden. A clear and immediate physical reaction.
Oh my goodness. And what happened next? Did others try to help?
Exactly. That just amplified the terror. A second nurse, Julie Gorczynski, saw her colleague collapse, rushed forward to assist, leaning over the gunny to check on both Nurse Kane and Gloria. In mere moments, she too began to feel lightheaded, nauseous, and swiftly succumbed, collapsing to the floor alongside Kane.
2 nurses down, just like that.
Just like that. Then a physician, Dr. Maureen McLeod, also present, began experiencing severe nausea and difficulty breathing. It was like a dreadful domino effect, utterly perplexing and profoundly terrifying for everyone present, especially as it started to affect more and more personnel. The chaos must have been absolute.
It sounds like something out of a movie. How many people were ultimately affected?
Within just a few minutes, the situation escalated into a full-blown crisis. It transformed a standard emergency response into a scene of widespread medical distress. In total, 23 members of the medical staff, nurses, doctors, respiratory therapists began experiencing severe and debilitating symptoms.
23, that's huge. And what kind of symptoms are we talking about? Were they all the same?
No, they were quite diverse, but severe. Intense nausea, widespread fainting spells, involuntary muscle spasms and tremors. Cases of temporary paralysis affecting limbs, and significant respiratory problems, including shortness of breath and burning sensations in the lungs.
Temporary paralysis. That sounds incredibly serious.
It was profound and lasting for many. For example, Dr. Julie Gorczynski, one of the nurses who initially collapsed, suffered a severe immune system reaction. She actually developed hepatitis and pancreatitis and remained in intensive care for 2 weeks, needing extensive treatment.
Wow. Hepatitis and pancreatitis from fainting in an ER.
Exactly. And another staff member, a respiratory therapist named Maureen Welch, experienced partial paralysis in her legs that lasted for several weeks. It severely impacted her ability to walk and work. These were not fleeting psychological reactions. They were concrete, measurable physiological impairments that truly underscored the severity and mysterious nature of the incident.
So what does this all signify when you have such a bizarre and widespread physical reaction? The hospital's immediate response must have been drastic.
Drastic, but entirely understandable given the circumstances. The entire emergency room, a normally bustling and critical hub, was evacuated.
The whole ER. Imagine that scene, alarms blaring, patients being rushed out, doctors and nurses collapsing, all while the source of the danger remained unseen. Sheer pandemonium.
Absolutely. And a hazardous materials or hazmat team was immediately called to the scene. They were operating under the assumption that a highly toxic chemical had been released, that there was some unknown contaminant in the air, possibly a gas or an airborne agent, directly poisoning the staff.
That makes sense. That would be the logical first assumption. Did they find anything?
And this is precisely where the mystery deepened even further. It just added layers of perplexity to an already inexplicable event. When the highly trained hazmat team arrived, all kitted out in protective gear with sophisticated detection equipment, they conducted an exhaustive sweep of the entire ER. Their findings were baffling. They detected no evidence whatsoever of a chemical spill. None. The air quality was tested, meticulously found to be normal. No dangerous residues on surfaces, no signs of a broken container or a leak.
Nothing. So no external chemical source.
Nope. This perplexing absence of any tangible external threat only amplified the profound questions surrounding the incident. It pushed investigators into, uncharted territory.
It truly does. So if there's no external chemical, the question immediately became, what could possibly explain such a bizarre and widespread, almost contagious reaction in a high-stress hospital environment? That question hung heavy in the air, creating an urgent demand for answers, which led to investigations and competing theories, I assume.
That's right. The most prominent explanation, which ultimately became the official conclusion put forth by the state of California, originated from a team of scientists at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a highly respected government research facility. This is what became known as the DMSO theory.
The DMSO theory. Okay, what did they propose?
They proposed a highly detailed and quite complex hypothesis that Gloria Ramirez had been self-medicating with dimethyl sulfoxide, or DMSO.
DMSO, what is that for those of us listening who might not know?
Well, right, DMSO is a common industrial solvent used in various chemical processes, but it's also been controversially used as a folk remedy or alternative medicine, particularly for pain relief, often applied topically to the skin. Its medical efficacy is largely unproven and carries significant risks, but it was known to be accessible.
So the theory suggested she was using this stuff Maybe for the severe pain from her cancer?
Yeah.
Applied it to her skin, perhaps?
Exactly. That was a starting point. Then the Livermore scientists put forth this highly complex, multi-stage chemical chain reaction they believed occurred within and around Gloria Ramirez's body.
Okay.
They theorized that the oxygen administered in the ER to help her breathing, combined with the multiple electrical shocks from a defibrillator used during resuscitation, acted as catalysts. They suggested these interventions caused the DMSO within her system to first convert into dimethylsulfone, or DMSO2.
DMSO2. Dimethylsulfone. What's that?
It's a crystalline substance, which they suggested might explain the particles some staff noted seeing in her blood. But here's the truly critical part. They then theorized that this DMSO2, through interaction with her blood and the unique physiological conditions present, somehow spontaneously created dimethyl sulfate, or DMS.
Wait, dimethyl sulfate. You paused there. For those of us not in the chemical world, why is that name so significant? What exactly is DMS?
That's a crucial distinction to make. DMS, dimethyl sulfate, is an incredibly potent and notoriously dangerous compound. It's not just toxic, it's classified as a severe vesicant. That means it causes severe blistering and chemical burns on contact with skin or mucous membranes.
Burns. Yeah.
And furthermore, it's a neurotoxin capable of disrupting nerve function. And it has been identified as a chemical warfare agent due to its ability to incapacitate and cause widespread organ damage.
A chemical warfare agent generated inside a patient in an ER. That sounds extraordinary.
It highlights the truly extraordinary and unprecedented nature of the Livermore hypothesis. The idea that this specific chemical, normally made in labs, could be spontaneously generated inside a human body under routine ER conditions, and then volatilize into the air at levels high enough to sicken and hospitalize multiple medical staff. It's a big leap. Though the symptoms reported by the staff, respiratory distress, burns, neurological effects, they were consistent with DMS exposure, which lent a certain compelling, albeit unsettling logic to their theory.
Okay, so that's the theory for the staff's illness.
Yeah.
What about Gloria Ramirez herself? What was the official outcome for her? I understand her autopsy was complicated.
Very complicated. It was performed 6 days after her death, and her body wasn't just in 2 body bags, it was also placed inside a sealed aluminum coffin.
Wow. That alone speaks volumes about the extreme caution, maybe the lingering fear surrounding her remains.
It does. The official cause of her death was ruled as cardiac arrhythmia due to kidney failure, a direct and sadly expected consequence of her advanced cancer. But what's striking and perhaps indicative of the lingering uncertainty is that the alleged chemical exposure to the medical staff was not mentioned on her official death certificate.
Really, it was just omitted, like the two events were treated as separate.
Legally disconnected, it seems. It's almost as if the incident with the staff was treated as a separate, unexplained phenomenon.
And that separation, that omission, surely that fueled skepticism, paved the way for other explanations.
Absolutely. It provided fertile ground for an alternative, equally prominent explanation, the mass hysteria theory, or, more formally, mass sociogenic illness. The Riverside County Coroner's Office, which handled the case initially and did the autopsy, publicly and vehemently disagreed with the Livermore DMSO theory.
Disagreed. What was their argument?
Their argument was that the incident was primarily psychological in origin. They suggested the immense stress of the ER environment, combined with the bizarre and unsettling events, seeing colleagues faint, the strange odors, the palpable fear could have collectively led to the physical symptoms being reported by a large group.
So mass hysteria, the idea that in a highly charged environment, the power of suggestion and anxiety can cause real physical symptoms.
Exactly. In such situations, the mind-body connection is powerful. The immense stress, the fear, the uncertainty. It could trigger genuine physical responses in multiple people almost simultaneously.
So if one person faints and everyone is already on edge, others might genuinely experience similar symptoms, not from a chemical, but from the overwhelming psychological impact of the moment, the mind manifesting physical distress.
Precisely. It's a recognized phenomenon in psychology and public health. In situations of acute stress or perceived threat, especially when information is ambiguous or frightening, the human body can manifest a wide range of physical symptoms, headaches, nausea, dizziness, even temporary paralysis as a physiological response to psychological distress. The sheer number of people affected and the speed at which it spread were factors that proponents of the mass sociogenic illness theory pointed to as consistent with this phenomenon.
But this theory, I can imagine, was met with immense controversy, especially from the people who actually got sick.
Oh, absolutely. Outrage, even. The affected nurses and doctors vehemently rejected it, often with deep anger. They argued that their physical symptoms, particularly the severe and prolonged effects like the nurse paralyzed for weeks, or the documented hepatitis and pancreatitis, were far too severe, too concrete, too long-lasting to be dismissed as merely psychological.
They felt insulted, I suppose, believing their genuine suffering was being trivialized.
Profoundly insulted, yes. They felt it was being dismissed as all in their heads, effectively undermining their credibility as medical professionals and invalidating their experience.
And that's a truly critical human element in this debate, isn't it? Attributing severe physical illness solely to mass hysteria feels dismissive.
It does. For those individuals who experience debilitating physical effects and significant measurable medical conditions post-incident, it felt like a profound invalidation of their very real medical distress and trauma. It created a deep rift between segments of the scientific community and the affected individuals, adding another painful and contentious layer to an already baffling case. It really became a battleground of competing narratives with real lives caught in the middle.
A case so profoundly perplexing, so open to interpretation, lacking a definitive explanation, it naturally ignites public imagination, especially now, in the age of the internet.
You're absolutely right. Once a case like this enters the public consciousness, particularly with those bizarre details, the toxic woman, collapsing staff, emit teams, it inevitably breeds rampant speculation. Online forums, early internet communities, social media, they quickly became hotbeds for all sorts of far-reaching theories.
What kind of theories are we talking about beyond the DMSO and mass hysteria?
Oh, we saw everything. Claims of government experiments gone wrong, suggesting Gloria Ramirez might have been an unwitting subject in some secret bioweapon test. Theories involving radiation poisoning from an undisclosed source, or even, in the more extreme corners, notions of alien contamination or some kind of otherworldly encounter.
Alien contamination. Wow. Okay, so pretty far out there.
Highly speculative, yes. It's crucial to stress these theories universally lack any factual basis or supporting evidence from the official investigations. They largely exist in the realm of pure conjecture, fueled by a desire for sensational explanations.
It's a natural human tendency to seek explanations, especially when official ones seem incomplete. But the media played a huge role here too, didn't they? That nickname, the toxic lady.
Yes, that label, the toxic lady. It was bestowed by news outlets almost immediately and it stuck, became synonymous with her story.
How did that sensational label and the intense media attention it brought impact the case and public perception?
It was incredibly impactful and arguably sensationalized the tragedy from the start. It instantly encapsulated the public's fascination and horror. It also profoundly shaped how people perceived and remembered the case, creating this vivid, almost fictional image of Gloria Ramirez. She became a medical anomaly rather than a terminally ill patient. It made her case instantly recognizable, memorable, almost like a modern urban legend.
So it brought attention, but maybe not the right kind of attention. Could it have hindered the investigation?
Possibly. While the intense media attention certainly brought the case to national prominence, which is important, it could also have inadvertently influenced or even hindered the scientific and official investigations. Sensational headlines, the need for dramatic narratives, preconceived notions, they can sometimes foster emotional reactions or public pressure that overshadow careful, objective analysis. It could lead to confirmation bias or sway priorities away from less dramatic but maybe more accurate conclusions.
That's a powerful point. Once that narrative is set, it's hard to shake.
Yeah.
And beyond the medical and chemical questions, this case sparked broader sociological discussions too, right?
It did. It became a touchstone for discussions.
Yeah.
Was it a real but misunderstood phenomenon, a rare chemical event? Or was it a classic example of mass hysteria? It starkly highlights the tension between purely biological and purely psychological explanations for unexplained phenomena, especially in a clinical setting.
Were there other factors considered, like her background?
Well, the sources we're drawing from don't explicitly detail Gloria Ramirez's socioeconomic background or directly link it to the narrative in a major way. But it's worth considering, how broader societal factors, potential stigma around poverty, chronic illness, maybe even racial biases might subtly influence perceptions or interpretations. For instance, if someone is already marginalized, are their experiences or the experiences of those around them more readily dismissed as psychosomatic, less credible? The way the media framed the toxic lady might, perhaps unintentionally, reinforce certain societal biases. These are deeper sociological questions the case implicitly raises.
Okay, so let's circle back to the main theories. Decades later, after all the analysis, the reports, the counterarguments, can the complex DMSO theory truly explain everything that happened that night?
That remains the core unresolved question. Let's look at the DMSO theory again. Its strength. It attempts a detailed, logical, scientific explanation. The initial idea she might have used DMSO for pain is plausible for someone with terminal cancer pain. And the concept of a chemical transformation under ER conditions with oxygen and defibrillation offered a theoretical mechanism for releasing something toxic. Plus, the staff's symptoms did align with certain chemical exposures.
But the weaknesses, it feels incredibly intricate, almost too convenient.
You've hit on the critical flaw. The most significant weakness is that the entire proposed chain of reactions, DMSO to DMSO2, and then crucially to dimethyl sulfate, DMS, within a human body under hospital conditions. It's just never been proven to occur, ever, in any known biological pathway.
Never, so it's pure theory.
Purely theoretical in this context. To transform DMSO into DMS inside a body would need extreme energy or specific, highly unusual enzyme pathways not known in human physiology. DMS is typically synthesized in controlled labs, requiring strong oxidizing agents or catalysts, not spontaneously generated by a patient getting routine ER care. The sheer energetics, the required conditions, the rarity of DMS formation in living systems, it makes that pathway profoundly questionable. No scientific precedent in medical literature for this specific chain. It's a monumental gap in the argument, a series of very specific, unproven steps.
Okay, a big question mark over the DMSO theory. Then let's look again at the mass sociogenic illness theory. What are its strengths?
It also has compelling points. The fact the Hayes-Matt team found no external chemical is strong evidence against an environmental toxin. That's a big point in its favor. Furthermore, having a large number of people in an acutely stressful, emotionally charged environment experience similar acute symptoms does lend credence to a psychological component. We know stress manifests physically. Fight or flight can trigger dizziness, nausea, hyperventilation, muscle tension. A perceived threat, even unseen, can induce genuine physical symptoms and spread rapidly through shared anxiety.
But as you said, the staff rejected this strongly. What are the key weaknesses of blaming it all on psychology?
That's the primary, and for many, insurmountable weakness. While anxiety can cause fainting or nausea, the specific severity and persistence of the physical symptoms in some staff are incredibly hard to explain solely through psychological mechanisms. Think about the nurse with paralysis for weeks, or those with diagnosed hepatitis and pancreatitis. These usually indicate a physiological insult, genuine cellular or systemic damage, not just a psychological reaction. These aren't just subjective feelings, they're measurable medical conditions. That disconnect between the profound physical harm and a purely psychological explanation is the main sticking point. It seems insufficient for the full spectrum of effects.
So after all these years with these two compelling yet flawed theories, what fundamental questions still remain truly unanswered? What leaves this case so unresolved?
Well, the Gloria Ramirez case really stands as this perfect, haunting example of a scientific puzzle. You have two plausible yet deeply conflicting explanations, and neither fully satisfies all the evidence. It's a testament to the limits of our medical knowledge when faced with truly anomalous events. On one hand, a detailed chemical theory lacking direct proof of the core reactions in a human body. On the other, a psychological theory struggling to explain the severe, lasting physical symptoms. The absolute definitive why and how the staff got sick remains stubbornly elusive. It's a truly open question.
And beyond the science, there's that profound human cost we touched on. It's not just an abstract puzzle.
Absolutely not. It was a devastating human tragedy. The medical staff suffered acute symptoms, and some faced long-term health problems, chronic pain, emotional distress. Compounded by the public debate over their credibility, their professional integrity questioned, their suffering dismissed by some. And most tragically, Gloria Ramirez's family was left without a clear, definitive answer about what happened in her final moments. This ambiguity meant unresolved grief, injustice, no real closure.
It really makes you reflect on the broader implications. Scientific uncertainty, the limits of medical knowledge, maintaining public trust when faced with the inexplicable.
Exactly. It powerfully highlights that science, despite huge advancements, still operates at the frontier of the unknown. When something falls into that truly anomalous category, it challenges our assumptions about control and certainty. This can lead to skepticism, distrust, and a desire to fill the void with more sensational explanations. So the case perfectly encapsulates the theme of threads of truth, conflicting threads of evidence, scientific versus psychological, official reports versus dissenting opinions. A single tragic death rippled through an ER, a community challenging medical understanding and public consciousness. It's a story where the truth remains stubbornly out of reach, caught between plausible but incomplete explanations. A reminder that some mysteries defy tidy resolution.
The case of Gloria Ramirez remains a medical mystery that has haunted a community, and indeed the medical world, for decades. A young woman dies in a hospital, and the people who tried desperately to save her fall mysteriously ill. Was it a freak chemical accident requiring an unprecedented chain of reactions, a classic case of mass sociogenic illness, or something else entirely that we still don't understand? The threads of truth in this case are tangled in a complex web of conflicting scientific theories, a frustrating lack of definitive evidence, and the heartbreaking reality of a family that has never received a truly conclusive answer. The mystery of Gloria Ramirez may never be solved to everyone's satisfaction, but her story, a powerful cautionary tale about the limits of scientific knowledge and the human drive to explain the inexplicable, will never be forgotten. Next time on Threads of Truth, we explore one of the most chilling aviation disappearances of the modern era, the case of missing flight MH370.